our president too. Don't they tell me to cry harder? He's your president too. I get that like 72,000 times a day. And he told me he hates me.
Yep.
At the funeral service. I'm writing my Substack today on the idea of defiance in this moment, and not mere resistance, actually, that there's a difference, that we have to go on offense, and defiance is offense. So I'm fired up, but I'm also, tired like the rest of us, and scared.
You got emotional. I think you were doing a podcast the other day, and you were talking about how you received these death threats, and you had someone that was stalking you and somebody that was outside your place of residence, and you live with kids. And it's like, I felt really sorry for you, but as you know, you're not the only one. There are a lot of people, particularly today on the left, that are getting a lot of death threats, and it's really scary, the times that we are living in today. And the moment that Charlie Kirk was assassinated, I was on the air, obviously horrible. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought about his family. Mm-hmm. I thought about his kids. I thought about everybody that was there. You know what else I thought about? People like you, people like David Pakman, people that do this show all the time. And I thought about all of us, and this is just horrible for America, and it's also horrible for the left, because I fear retribution.
Yeah. Well, yes, to all of that. And just to reiterate, again, for everybody, I have disavowed this since the second it happened. And I disavow violence in all its forms, political violence, every form of violence. And I will also say that I don't know anybody who celebrated that brutal murder. I will just say that. But
can I just add something to that? I'm sorry to interrupt you, JoJo, but I'm on Pierce last week, and I'm debating Riley Gaines, and Riley Gaines says there are Democrat elected officials that are celebrating the death. And I said, no, Pierce, she's lying. Mm-hmm. And I said, can you name me one Democrat that celebrated the death? She couldn't name me one. But that's what they do, JoJo. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you reminded me of that.
It's so true. You're right. See, this is the problem, though, is that they lie about everything all the time, and then it's impossible to refute every single lie that they tell, and no one is expecting them to bring receipts anymore. They just say things ad hominem, and it doesn't matter if they pulled it out of the sky. They'll just say things like Riley was saying something that is verifiably untrue, but it doesn't matter because she's now put the lie out into the universe, and you know how a lie travels around the world before the truth can even get its pants on. That's where we are now. I actually did not go on. They asked me to come on to debate this topic, and I didn't, because I felt like it was a setup. And I don't want to put myself in any more precarious positions right now, because even when I said immediately before we knew he had passed, I said, I hope he's okay. We don't agree on anything, but I hope he's okay. Yep. And as soon as I posted that, I got hundreds, maybe thousands of responses that I did it, that it was on me, that I murdered him, that my words murdered him. And it was like, what? But that's this moment too, where I don't know. I think I can name this for a lot of people, where we're being gaslit to a point where they're like, no, that's not true. Where they're like, oh, the left are the ones stoking this violence, and the left are perpetrating it, and they're celebrating it. And my God, they have literally put at the top of the rotten fish that is this cult of a party now, someone who incited a deadly attack on our Capitol, and then pardoned every single person who participated in it, and has called for violence against his enemies for years.
Right. Isn't that rich, JoJo? JoJo, isn't that rich that they blame people like us? Jillian Michaels, who I think is a complete buffoon, said that my rhetoric is partially responsible. Nancy Mace actually said that I'm part of the reason why we're at where we're at. And I'm like, you guys support Donald Trump. Yeah. Did you hear what happened on January 6th? Because I say I don't think Riley Gaines is a good person because she's a trans grifter, or because I speak truth to power. Somehow I'm inciting violence. I mean,
that's the gaslighting. And that it is history may not repeat, but it certainly does rhyme. And all of this is from the playbook we've seen over and over and over again, and how dictators and despots and authoritarians and fascists take control. And one of those ways, one of those techniques, is to make everybody else feel like they're losing their minds. It's like, don't believe your own eyes and ears. 1984, this is what's unfolding right now, to the point where you're like, but that's provably false. That Riley can say that they can make up statistics, that they can say that the violence is coming from the left, that they can whitewash and sane wash and utterly revise and rewrite the truth of Donald Trump. And we're supposed to just go, oh, okay. Or we have to defy, right? We have to be defiant. We have to say it is hard to keep speaking up, speaking out. They are coming for us. They're trying to make us quiet by fear. They're trying to make us quiet by, getting the public against us, by gaslighting the rest of the public into believing things about us that aren't true. And that can be a very isolating feeling. You feel like you're losing your mind, and then you feel boxed in, and then you feel like you want to withdraw. And we cannot. We all have to stand up and be defiant in this moment, no matter what, especially given what they're saying.
Yeah, amen. I certainly agree with you. If you're just joining us, JoJoFromJerz, Joanna Carducci joining us right now on the program. We were just talking about Charlie Kirk. I have to get your thoughts on this James Comey indictment where Donald Trump ran on, Joe Biden's DOJ. They're weaponizing the DOJ against me. And now he says more indictments are coming, and he's just indicted James Comey. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, again, the hypocrisy, the gaslighting, right? It goes to 15 here. That every accusation is a confession. It's always that way with them. And this is all retribution. That's it, plain and simple. And once upon a time, he's had this retributive streak in him, but he had adults in the room, at least people who were adult infused in the room. There were, hints of guardrails to constrain him and his worst impulses. Those are not only gone, they're at the bottom of the ocean with the Titanic. They're gone, to say the least. These are people who embolden his worst impulses. These are people who are like, oh, who says you can't? You're going to follow some flimsy law, some constitution? Like that, you're too big for that. You can do whatever you want. And until you find somebody who will do your bidding, you just keep getting rid of people. This was his appointee in the District of Virginia, who said, there's no there. If you follow the letter of the law, there's no charges there. And he said, well, then you have to go, until he found someone. And of course, he found someone in that, legal Barbie, I don't know what her name is, who was in pageants with Charlie Kirk's wife, by the way, which is just, there's a lot of odd overlap there. But it's terrifying. And we all know that it doesn't stop with James Comey, because the other day I had Miles Taylor on, and Miles Taylor, on the day that the news broke that there was an indictment likely for Comey, I talked to Miles, which was just serendipitous timing. And he knew in that moment, when he was one of the first names Trump said he was going to come after with an investigation way back in the beginning of this season of this nightmare. He's like, it's not going to end with me and Chris Krebs. And of course, it's not going to end with Jimmy Kimmel. It's not going to end with James Comey. There will be more retribution, because he's getting away with it, because people are complying. And when a bully bullies you, if you don't stand up immediately and say to that bully, not me, not today, it's going to come back. He's going to come back for more. He's always going to come back for more. If you run away crying and screaming, he's just going to find somebody else to bully. And Donald Trump is a bully at the end of the day. And we all need to stand up to him. We all need to be defiant.
Two-part question I want to ask you. The first one is, have you ever seen anything as disgusting as the comments that Stephen Miller and Donald Trump made literally at Charlie Kirk's, well, I'm not going to call it funeral, but whatever people want to call it is fine. That's number one. And number two, do you feel like Stephen Miller's really calling the shots here with almost everything?
Take that's the second half first, because Donald Trump doesn't care about policy. Donald Trump doesn't have a center. He doesn't have any principle. There's no guiding, self there. He wants retribution. He wants revenge. He wants power. He wants money. He wants his butt kissed. He wants, to be the most important person in the world. He wants everybody to bow and kneel. That's really all he wants. He wants all the toys. Stephen Miller, on the other hand, is insidious. Stephen Miller has an agenda. Stephen Miller has been this person probably since he spawned from whatever fetid, toxic waste pool that was gathering in a meat packaging plant parking lot, and mixed with some other chemical to spawn him. Like, he's been this Stephen Miller for all this time. This is deeply important to him, right? And so I would say on immigration, when it comes to ICE and when it comes to all of that, is 1000% Stephen Miller. The America First, most of Trump's rhetoric, most of his speeches, Stephen Miller. Trump's speech at Charlie Kirk's service. I like don't even know what to call it because there were pyrotechnics and grifting and ads. Like, it's very strange. But that was all Stephen Miller. And Donald Trump doesn't care. Like, he doesn't actually care about anything. He's probably genuinely racist. He's definitely genuinely a sexual abuser. He's definitely genuinely xenophobic and sexist. But outside of that, I don't think he really cares. So, but to that spectacle that people were afraid to say anything honest about for a hot minute there because people had been shamed into holding two truths at once, that Charlie Kirk was a terrible person and that he shouldn't have been murdered. Like, you can actually hold those two truths because that's almost incumbent upon us to do that. But that service was very, 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 very strange. And for Donald Trump to stand there in that moment, nobody should have ever expected anything otherwise. And to say that Kirk, unlike him, also fact check untrue, wanted what was best for his enemies and rivals. He's still right. Fact check, no. But what Trump said, and he went off script, and said, that's the difference between us. I don't want what's best for them. I do hate them. I hate them. And I don't want good things for them. That, in and of itself, should be insane. This is the president of the United States of America telling half the country that he hates them and doesn't wish good things for them. He's supposed to be our president too. Don't they tell me to cry harder? He's your president too. I get that like 72,000 times a day. And he told me he hates me at the funeral service. I mean,
you're right.
Ludicrous. And Stephen Miller literally stole his speech from Goebbels.
Yeah.
Like, almost a literal word for word. I mean, friends, friends, when they say that we're being hyperbolic because we say if it looks like a Nazi and it sounds like a Nazi and it talks like a Nazi and it goose steps like a Nazi, it's probably a Nazi. Like, this is where we are now. Stephen Miller was just a Nazi incarnate at a funeral service.
Yeah, no, you're right. Listen, sometimes I'm uncomfortable with that word, but if people bringing up when it comes to Stephen Miller, I'm very comfortable. Make no mistake about that. Now, I'm going to be very careful here because I think we all feel for Charlie Kirk's wife, right? As do I and most people, and they should. She's obviously gone through hell. This was her husband. Now she's living without a husband. Yeah. With that being said, what did you make of the weird video she put out when she was over Charlie Kirk's body? And then they put that video out on social media, which I would think should have been a private moment. And then she's asking for money. And the reason why I've used the term grifting is because I know people that have gotten text messages from Turning Point with with her words, asking people for money. Let me make this very clear. This isn't somebody who can't afford to bury her husband. Okay. That would be understandable, more than understandable. This is someone that's worth over $10 million. Yeah. And I found that to be so disgusting and reprehensible. But that being said, I certainly feel for her and her children. But I used the term grifting and I took slack for that. Well, what else would you call it then, JoJo?
Well, I mean, the word of the day is hypocrisy, because they every 10 seconds were telling us, well, Jimmy Kimmel almost lost his job because we were dishonoring Charlie Kirk, right? Dishonoring, they said we were dishonoring Charlie Kirk's legacy, which is a whole onion in and of itself, but dishonoring Charlie Kirk by holding fast to the truth of Charlie Kirk and not allowing ourselves to be gaslit into believing that he was really truly an adherent to the gospel, right? Like, really truly a good faith Christian, this person who was racist, bigoted, sexist, the guy who called for public executions and for children to be able to go see them. Okay, like, let's just be real here. But we were dishonoring him by pointing out the truth of him while still saying at the same time that should not have gotten him killed. And yet they do that. First of all, I'll just say this. My dad was the closest person to me in my entire life that I've ever lost. He passed away in 2011. When my dad passed away, I was unable to speak for days and days. I couldn't go look at his body in his casket because it was too hard for me, because it was too final. That wasn't my dad in that body anymore. My dad was gone, and looking at him, I couldn't do it. I stood up to give my portion of the eulogy at his funeral. I was surrounded by my siblings, one of whom has passed since, and I couldn't get through 2 words. My brother and my sisters had to read my words because I was a literal sobbing mess, and I was gutted, gone. Like there was nothing here. And that was my dad. And I know we all grieve differently, but the last thing I ever would have thought about in that moment or in the moments immediately following at his service would be to pose for cameras
Right.
with like a production. Like there,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like somebody
That's my
thought,
point. They
yeah,
thought about doing it's not like somebody just took out their cell phone and started
no,
recording. That was something that was set up beforehand. Hey, I'm going to hold my dead husband's hands. I want you to
yeah.
record this. I'm going to put this out on social media, and then we're going to ask people for money. You know, that's what's going on. And I just find that to be horrific.
If that's not a disservice to his legacy, I don't know what is. And like again, I saw something about somebody who is a marketing specialist broke down Erica's video, her first video with the podium,
Mhm.
in his office by his chair, and it was very, very interesting because she was explaining, that none of it was by accident. But I don't know if you caught it, but on the shelf in that room was a Time magazine with Donald Trump on the cover, and there were all these subliminal messages. The podium itself was a subliminal message that, like, it was this woman who said that my place is in the kitchen and my place is in the bedroom and my place is just with my children rearing them, already establishing she's now in power. And she became CEO shortly thereafter. But like it's all very strange and opportunistic, which sounds gross when you're talking about someone who was killed, someone who was murdered. And everyone I know was responding with reverence to his actual murder and not using it as an opportunity to score some political points. Quite the contrary. We were trying to highlight, if anything, why political violence in all its forms should be denounced, and it should have been denounced before we put somebody who incited a deadly attack on our Capitol back in the office he tried to steal.
Yeah.
That's what should have happened.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. JoJo, before I let you go, I love what you do. I love your podcast. I love it when you bring these celebrities into your rooms, and I love your work. So can you give out the information of what you're continuing to do in fighting for democracy and fighting for truth? Talk to me a little bit about how people could get a little bit more involved with what you have started.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Brian. Well, I'm really excited. Since the last time we talked, I launched with my friend Sam Schwartz. We launched a media network called The Siren. You can go to thesirennetwork.com. You can go find us at The Siren on Substack. And the reason that The Siren exists is when I was looking around before the election in 2024 in August of last year, I was looking around going, first of all, we're getting crushed out there on social media, and that's not good. We need more voices. We need more perspectives. All the same people get all the same access to all the same lawmakers, and the people themselves are getting disconnected from their lawmakers, and we need to bridge those gaps. We need to bring people closer to their electeds, because that is where I think you actually impact change, when people feel like they have access to the people who are supposed to be making policy for them. But also I want just more voices, more perspectives. We need to flood the zone with left leaning and progressive leaning and democratic leaning perspectives, and we need a diversity and a tapestry with something that really reflects what the United States of America looks like, something that threatens Republicans deeply. So we have 8 contributors now on The Siren. We have everyone from Harry Dunn to Rachel Vindman to Joel Rubin, my friend Joe Galena, and we're building and building and building. And over there I have the Siren podcast, which just featured leader Hakeem Jeffries, was just on today, right before I recorded with you. So that's up over there on The Siren. And then of course I have my own personal Substack, where today I'm going to be writing in conjunction with that interview about this idea of defiance, because Miles Taylor put this thought in my head when he said, in my darkest hour, and he is really scared for his life and for his wife and for their 1-year-old child. In his darkest hour, he wraps himself around that word and what that word means. And right now that word means having conversations like these. As you know, there are little things and big things. Conversations are an act of defiance when you have a tyrant that is trying to silence you. So thank you for what you do. And for everybody watching, thank you for watching, because that's an act of defiance. Supporting new media, supporting content creators, supporting people like Brian, supporting people like Pete, supporting people like me and people on The Siren. That is an act of defiance in this moment. Just look at Jimmy Kimmel. Just look at what we're able to do. Okay. And use that as your lodestar. Use that as your beacon of hope and promise, and that we are the ones we were waiting for. We, the people, we are stronger than the people in power.
Yeah, well said, and I appreciate those kind comments. Please keep up the great work, JoJo. I love you. I love what you do, and hopefully have a good weekend, you and your family. And we will talk soon. And thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.